Greetings and welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic podcast. My name is Sharon Ann Rowland and I'm your host. So today's podcast is quite topical. We will be discussing in a roundtable environment the disease named COVID-19, which originated in the Hubei province in China. On the roundtable today, we have Will Hamilton, entrepreneur, Rob Newett, founder and chairman of the Australian Federation Party in Tasmania and member of the Federal Executive, Doug Anderson, who has been a medical professional for the majority of his life in the US, Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle from the US, and this time the other side of the US, Los Angeles, Amanda Gabrielle Prosser, child abuse whistleblower. Let's jump to Will. Will, has our respective government or controlling agencies, or what the different departments really of Australia, I suppose, done anything particularly stupid in your opinion?
I think their efforts to stop canoodling was really...
Yes, the canoodling one. Yes, that was classic.
Sorry?
I thoroughly agree with you. I thought that was hilarious. What was that?
There's no way I was going to get on with that. That was just outlandish, really. That's the only thing I can think of was silly. And in my area, you know, it's a middle-class area, and everyone's trying to outdo each other and being social distance, washing hands. They're really, really into it, you know?
Yeah. oh, I've got one. There's the wheelie bin dressing up. Have you seen this, guys? In Australia, there's like 1,000 people online who are dressing up as like Halloween and to take their wheelie bins on Sunday nights out to the curb, and that's a thing in Australia. Sorry, but that's not really a controlling agency thing, but it's just a stupid thing that's happening in Australia at this moment. So, Rob, how about you? What have you been seeing? Or what have you been wearing, I should say?
Well, no, I haven't been seeing much. Like I say, it's been reasonably, people here in Tassie have been reasonably civil. Everything's been, pretty good. Mainstream media, once again, dominates with the local garbage. Most of the stuff I see, I get through the internet, like you say, and predominantly, while I rely on Facebook, it's not so much Facebook per se, it's the contacts that I have on there that the information I get through them, and a lot of that is through Facebook or through YouTube or through other areas. So getting and relying good information is quite hard at times, because you really do have to do your background research, basically your journalistic type research, Sharon, and get to the root of what the deal is. And once again, just for you, Angela, because you're in that baby boomer.
Amanda.
Angela, and your next New South Wales police officer, and I think Neville Rand coined it right when he said, New South Wales police, the best money can buy. That was...
trust me, we could have a whole show about that and what I know.
Oh, look, I have no doubt. I used to live at Bondi. I worked on the State Rail Authority in New South Wales for 7 years. Sharon knows a couple of years back I went for a holiday to Alice Springs and was escorted by an Australian Protective Services officer and an Australian Federal Police officer away from the boundary of Pine Gap because they didn't like me being there. He was at the sign apparently. You didn't even go past the sign and they escorted you. They just didn't like the look of him. Let's say it. They just said, they did all their bits and pieces, made all their questions, went down, turn left and don't come back. So, but look, I don't know. There hasn't been a lot of civil disobedience that I can really say from our perspective from down here. It's been relatively civil. People haven't lost their shit yet. I know that if it goes on for a prolonged period, if this so-called, and I do call it a medically induced martial law, that's what we're under at the moment, because there is food rationing, there is limiting of where you can and can't go. When governments start limiting your civil liberties and what you can and can't do in your average everyday life, that is not a normal circumstance in any way, shape or form. That is an abnormal circumstance, and in this case it is basically, like I said, a medically induced martial law. And if it does go on for a protracted, prolonged period of time, I can see where the loonies will start to lose their shit, and it will be like a little bit of a zombie apocalypse type crap that you see. You know, people will start to go a bit crazy and a bit weird.
And they are already, and in costume, and on wheelie day.
Like in Australia, I mean, Angela was talking about being chockers before. On you, Angela, you're a charmer. For our American friends, she was talking about being chockers before. All I can say is, don't rip your thong, because you might, no one needs a limp when you got a ripped thong. You know, the Americans are going, rip your thong. What the hell are they talking about?
Well, I think they think that's knickers, don't you? Like panties.
That's like little skimpy underpants.
Yeah. So a thong is actually something we put on our feet and walk around on. So it's very different.
With that, and may I cite some legislation?
Yeah, go for it.
About moving, because we have all these freedoms, and I was fairly certain we've got freedom of movement, and it says the right of every person lawfully within a territory to liberty of movement, freedom to choose a residence, to enter his or her own country and leave any country. It goes on, but basically that's a right that we are losing. It's being taken from us. I don't think people even know they have these freedoms. I mean, right now we're expressing our freedom of communication, our freedom of association, our freedom of belief, our freedom of conscience. Normally that's associated with conscientious objecting and not going to war. Freedom of information. We've also got freedom. We were just talking, we've got freedom of, and don't turn your face, I know you're eating, freedom of interstate trade, commerce and intercourse. Oh, there's that word, doodling.
Canoodling.
Intercourse. So you've got freedom of intercourse there if you really want it. Freedom of movement, peaceful assembly, religion, speech, and of course freedom of the seas. Well, we don't have freedom of the seas right now, do we?
We should say though that this is only, at this point in time, we do think this is a temporary situation. So I'm not going to get too upset about what I've lost until it's never given back, basically. So I'm going to wait for, what do they say? It's a 2-week period. So I'm going to give them till the end of April. Then I'm going to start to get upset if nothing's come back as it should. And we're going to kick off with Doug on this one. So in early February 2020, the Mayor of Florence, I apologise for my pronunciation if I do this incorrectly. The Mayor of Florence, Dario Nardella, suggested residents hug Chinese people to encourage them in the fight against the COVID-19 disease. This led to Chinese residents standing in the street wearing a mask with a sign stating, "I'm not a virus, I'm a human. Eradicate the prejudice." This led to many Italians removing the person's mask, hugging and kissing them. Do you think this campaign and political correctness as a whole has led to Italy having the highest number of COVID-19 deaths outside of China? It's about the fact that a known population was known to be infected, and this was allowed to occur, and it was promoted by the mayor of that city. And you could interchange the race and take the place to somewhere else. Would any mayor in his right mind at the beginning of an infection, should he have done that? I mean, I just found that just scandalous. And it was all done, I think, for political correct reasons and for brownie points, or what do they call it, Will? Is it virtue signalling? I saw that as a virtue signal. What do you, actually, we might start with Will, actually, because he'll probably be the best person to talk about this. Tell me, what do you think?
Well, I think that if people have just come from China, that would be quite silly for them to be hugging anyone. But if they've been living in Italy quite peacefully and not having any connection with people who have travelled to China, I wouldn't see a problem for those people. So
even at the beginning of an epidemic, I mean, everyone knew that this was happening. This is February. It was about February 11th, and at that point, pretty much Italy had rising numbers, and pretty much all of us knew that something was coming, and so I still don't think anyone should have been doing that sort of thing, no matter where they were. It just seems a little bit, I just thought it was a bad move. I can and for what it gained, did it actually spread more of the disease? What do you think? I mean, we'll never know, will we? So
No,
from a political perspective, I can see what he would be trying to do.
Yeah.
He'd be trying to quell panic within the community and show people that, look, it's not every Chinese person, go up and hug people, be the right thing. I reckon the mayor's probably wish he could recant his statement now. Hindsight's
great.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But from a political, if he's the mayor of the town, he's probably wanting to be proactive. So let's not get down on the guy for wanting to be proactive. Secondly, at that stage of the game, I don't think anyone had the information that they have now. Once again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. We know a lot more about this now and what it is and how it's transmitted and things like that.
Italy was further along at that point, though, so they actually did have a lot more information at the beginning of February than most countries, because they had the highest, I don't know if it's still there, but at that point they had the highest infection and death rate at that point too.
Probably because they had the highest amount of people going to church on Sunday and the Pope's blessing them. There was one priest that gave communion to 500 people or something in a day, and he had, I mean, seriously, this is how things like this. These are the things when you talk about your social distancing.
Yeah.
It's things like your church like that. That's where if you've got a priest that's contagious and he's baptising 500 people in a day, or giving communion,
communion's
in a mass. In a mass, then you could say if it's got an 80% germination rate, then 80 out of that, and you're looking at 400 out of your 500 people infected. Bang, straight up.
Exactly.
And you know what's going to happen then. The tree blossoms from there. So when you look at these areas where you've got mass concentrations of high amounts of people, look at what other things they're doing within their communities that can contribute to the high transmission rates.
Well, it was just bad luck. It was New Year. It was Chinese New Year
like
too.
The French. But like the French and the Italians are the same. They'll sit around the street cafes drinking coffee and talking. They're very social people. Now if this is easily transmitted and can stay on in different areas and different textures for prolonged periods of time, then it's only a given. It's like the plague, I mean, look at the transmission rate of that. It's the same thing. Where you've got and this being a really nasty. It's not a good virus. It's not a natural. I don't care what anyone will tell you. This is not a naturally occurring virus.
No, I think they've already announced that it's man-made. Rob, do you think that most countries will build up their manufacturing infrastructure, at least for their essential goods, post all of this? I mean, China seems to have let down a lot of countries on their supply chains post. I know in the US you had a few issues, and I know in Australia we've had issues. We just received some faulty goods from the China. Obviously they don't have the workers that are well enough to actually be producing these things at this time, so things have dropped. Do you think though that because of this we've all kind of woken up to the fact that we can't rely on a different country supplying us with essential goods, especially Australia? Do we have any manufacturing left? But very minimal.
Well, here in Australia, the issue for us has been for a while, since 73, 74. That's when our manufacturing went into decline. A lot of people don't understand why and how, the ramifications of our manufacturing industry. But essentially what's happened, we signed the Lima Agreement with the United Nations, which is an agreement which basically said that we would give up manufacturing of things and send that manufacturing offshore to third world countries to bolster their economy, right? So manufacturing was basically shut down in Australia under the Lima Agreement, and that was sent off to third world countries. Now China still claims itself to be a third world country. I mean, you look at cities like Wuhan. I mean, it's a huge, enormous city. It's like the Paris of the middle of it's a really big city and things like this. China should not be classed as a third world country. So economically speaking, we're up against there are many things we have to take into account. We have to take into account that A, do we have the capacity to be a manufacturing country again? B, where do we get that machinery that's required for that manufacturing capacity again? Do we have to import that machinery, or do we build that machinery on site inland Australia and employ Australians to build that machinery? There are a number of issues that will go in it, and then you've got to bring into it the political aspects of treaties and deals that have been signed. Whether we like it or not, we still have those deals in place with other countries and trade deals that we have to abide by. But once again, like I said, that Lima Agreement is the underlying agreement with the United Nations that ties Australia's hands to reduce its manufacturing capability. So if Australia is to become a manufacturing nation again, to build Hills Hoist and Hoover washing machines and Holden cars and all the things that we used to build here in Australia, that the majority of Australian people at my age would know, and know very, very well indeed, you know, Titan nails, I mean, things like Stanley tools, you know, you can hand a man a granite spanner than a synchrone. All these things that we used to manufacture in Australia that we stopped manufacturing because of this damn Lima Agreement. So the reality for Australia is, if we are to become a manufacturing country again to support ourselves, and that is A, not to put all our eggs in one basket again, which is what we've done under these trade agreements throughout the world. If we are to then become a self-sustaining nation again and not rely on the predominance of China, we're going to find it hard in the very beginning because we don't have that manufacturing base again. But therein lies the challenge, that it will provide jobs and the economy will grow with that. So that's something we do have to look forward to if we take on that challenge of becoming a manufacturing industry again. Now, this is where the government needs to take the controls, because you can give as many stimuluses as you like, right? We all I got a $700 bonus out of the day in the check because we're on the pension and the government threw us all $700, you know. That's a great thing. It's going to make a lot of people work. For a lot of people, one bloke went and bought 20 cartons of beer or something, you know. I mean, I know it keeps the brewery workers going, but it's not the reality of things. So the biggest stimulus for the country that we need, for the government, is, and I've been saying this for quite a long time, is we need a major injection of industrial projects in this country. That big rail project will help. We need to get back to shipbuilding in this country and build our own ships again. You know, we need to start doing these things again and start employing the Australian people. And I think if there's one thing I hope that not just the Australian people, but a lot of people around the world can take out of this, and it is they take the value of the average everyday worker out there that keeps the country running, because if nothing, this coronavirus has shown you can have as many degrees in the world as you like, but when paper runs out at Woolworths, you've still got nothing to wipe your bum on.
Yeah, exactly.
All right?
What about you in the... Oh, sorry, Rob, are you going to wrap up?
I was just going to say, I think this will give us the change and shift we need to value people a little bit more.
Definitely.
And it will change our society in that respect.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So, and for Barbara and Doug, in the US, you've also experienced this lack of manufacturing, and you're now starting to build it up since your current president came in. What's the feeling over there towards made in China? Is it turned? Is it like, well, we need to bring that manufacturing back home? Since the coronavirus, I mean.
I would, from what I hear from people, definitely that they want to not ever let this happen again, especially with the trade with China and having everything sent over. When we have, like in the past, had the car manufacturing companies, just whole towns have been destroyed from that, and we have the capability of rebuilding and putting people back to work that way. I mean, there's so many out of work now that so many people, I forget the exact number of cases of unemployment, but it's unparalleled. It's never been at this bad as it is at this point. So I just see that we can look at things differently from the beginning of this coronavirus.
I think what shocked me the most was the percentage of your medicines that were made in China that you were dependent on. That shocked me. I think I saw the report about 2 weeks ago, and it was something like 70% of medicines for the basic treatments like diabetes or heart-related illnesses come from China, and they basically said we can hold off. In a way, they actually inferred a bit of a threat to you, didn't they, about 2 weeks ago on the medicine front, and that shocked me. I was hoping it was just a miscommunication, but the way it was, the way they communicated it to the States, it wasn't, I don't think. So how did you guys feel when that happened? It was about 2 weeks ago when they actually, that threat kind of was said to you.
That's I'm not up on that. That's my first hearing that. So.
Oh, okay. Doug, do you remember that about 2 weeks ago?
No.
You haven't heard that? Wow. Okay. Well, it was on our TV over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kept quiet here.
Will, do you know what I'm talking about? It was about 2 weeks.
Absolutely, and I think Donald Trump has really got the Chinese Communist Party's number, and he's going to take them on every front. And this is a very, very good legitimizing fact to back him up. And he's already bringing manufacturing back to America before this even happens. So that's going to be on the front foot now.
Yeah. And what about from the Australian perspective? I don't think it's affected us as much, but what do you think? Do you think we really need to have a hard look at ourselves and get out of this Lima agreement that Rob was talking about?
A very hard look at ourselves. I think that we've allowed the Chinese Communist Party, look what they're doing up in Darwin now. They're even having smart cities there in Darwin, and they're using 5G. And I think we've underestimated just what their real agenda is.
Yeah.
And I think we have to have a good look at just how much they're investing in Australia and what their real agenda is.
Yeah. I must admit, I hadn't really paid too much attention until they bought the port in Darwin. And then I was like, oh my God, who sells a port to another country? I was always on the fence with the whole port.
Well, it's not a sale, it's only a lease. They can't sell it, they can only lease it. But
that's good to know.
The guy in Victoria has done exactly the same with the Port of Melbourne, leased the Port of Melbourne to the Chinese. And this is all part of the bigger Chinese agenda with the Silk Road project, right? Mm-hmm. What the Chinese, their approach, their domination approach. Look, the Chinese will take 1,000-year approach to things. They don't care. Their culture is thousands of years old. They'll take 1,000-year approach to this, and they will dominate. And the reason they will is because what they will do, they've got Silk Road projects where they're buying up, they're building roads, they're building rails, they're taking up ports, right? Road, rails and ports. Now, what are the road, rails and ports? Road, rails and ports are the major aims for the distribution of the manufacturing. If China is manufacturing everything and they've got distribution of and they've got control of the distribution ports, you've got no say in anything and everything. They've got you wrapped up in blankets, you've got no say. That's just the way it is. And this is all part of the bigger agenda, and they will take a long-term look at things. They don't necessarily look at things in a 3 to 5 year term. They'll look at things in a 10 to 50 year term. Right? That's where you've got to understand the Chinese approach to business and what they do.
Amanda, what do you... Oh, sorry, Rob.
Well, as I was listening to Rob, I was thinking, going back to the question about the mayor, I made a note here and I said, I can't believe that mayor didn't know what was coming. And how do we know it wasn't actually part of the plan? Like, they don't care. We want people sick because we want this event to we want a catalytic effect. We want to affect everyone. We want it to snowball. We want it to get bigger and bigger. How do we know that action wasn't actually prepared? Because the first patient was diagnosed in 2019. All governments talk to each other. So this leasing of ports, or any action they take to buy land, buying the water here, you can't tell me the government doesn't know. So I don't think there's even any discussion, because these people know what's going on. We don't. That's why we're trying to piece it together. We're trying to work it out, because Locard's law, all detectives use Locard's law. Every place leaves a trace. There will be a trail. It's just that we're not party to the communications.
Let's talk about Bill Gates. That's kind of along the same lines. I'm not sure, like, I posted one of them. He's done many of these TED Talks and various videos where he's talking about the next outbreak. He's kind of foretold what's actually happening as what we're currently living. Does anyone have any thoughts to share on the Gates Foundation and its quest to vaccinate the world? Is anyone, Barbara, what do you think? As a US citizen, what's your perspective on Bill Gates? Do you see him as a philanthropist trying to assist the world, or do you think he's got other motivations going on?
Well, I think he just stepped down from his post, so that tells you something right there.
I didn't know that.
And,
so he's gone to the bunker then, has he, early?
Yeah. And that for him to think that he could, in a way, play God to vaccinate all of the children, and especially in Africa, there was a lawsuit against him, from what I understand.
So, Doug, from your perspective, what do you think of Bill Gates and vaccination and his stand as a philanthropist in the world, and his recent going off to the bunker, which I didn't know till today, so thanks for that, Barb. So,
I really haven't paid much attention to that. I really don't know his motives, but I do know that after H1N1 in 2009, 2010, and they developed a vaccine for it, that all healthcare professionals in the United States had to take that vaccine.
Really?
In order to actually do their jobs. Otherwise, you'd be fired.
That was after the SARS. That was SARS, wasn't it? H1N1?
Yeah, it's H1N1. People don't realize how bad a terrible pandemic that was. That people just never heard about it.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it, how we know so much about this one, but that one was minimized. Yeah, you're right.
It was. In fact, President Obama kept it quiet here until quite a few people had already died.
So he pulled a China.
As a healthcare professional, I knew about it. I treated it.
Yeah.
This is all a mess to me, because in 10 years we have done absolutely nothing to prevent it happening again. And it's going to keep repeating itself. And somehow, how are we going to shut down the world every time this happens?
Yeah, I suppose, I know the UK has approached it a little differently. They basically told the people that were most likely to be infected to stay home, whereas the working people, the young people, they've allowed to keep working, apparently. So I suppose in 3 or 4 months' time, we'll be able to look back and see how every different country has approached it and who survived the best, and then we'll have a better understanding of how to treat this in future. But you're right, at this point, nobody knows. I mean, every country seems to have taken a different approach at a different time and at a different stage of it. So the vaccination programs that Bill Gates has run, he's run them purely overseas. There's been nothing internal to the US. You've seen nothing there?
I have not seen it.
Oh, that's interesting too, isn't it? Does anyone else know if is it just been in like the third world countries that his kind of foundation goes out to?
I think maybe he's using it as an experiment, a trial, Sharon, before he got ready to do what he's doing now.
Oh, okay. No, that's a good point, actually. Yeah. You do usually do that, don't you? You test your things.
Streamline it.
Wow. So, let's discuss different concerns that everyone has. So, I know, Barbara, you wanted to discuss the issues facing seniors in the US concerning this. What have you found that's been an impact?
Well, one of the impacts, here in the U.S., President Trump signed that new bill, the $2.2 trillion coronavirus relief bill, right? And it's really unprecedented for its time. But in that act, for seniors, they're not giving you any kind of a relief check. Each adult's supposed to get $1,200, I think it is, and $500 for children. But you can't receive that unless you filed your 2019 taxes. And so people are kind of outraged about that and pretty upset about it that it could take a lot of red tape. So the ones that need it the most, like the seniors, won't be getting it. And if they do, it'll be, could be weeks out. They're trying to work on it, but it's kind of in a stalled position right now. And we have 47 million seniors in the United States.
Wow.
So we have,
that's a lot, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's over I think it's 14%, something like that, of Americans are over 65. And it's supposed to double too. So it's there's a lot of us here. And for the seniors, I think it's about in a general idea, it's about we like our independence, and that's been taken away.
Yeah.
Even more so than someone who isn't a senior in some ways, because now we can't go anywhere and we're really dependent. And for a senior, you really, really like your independence. So I get pissed off sometimes about it, because I that's one of the things that I have pride in is my independence in a way. Yeah. But also in the same way, I do see a level of respect for elders that I've never seen before on the other hand of that. And that is the communities bringing meals and seeing how you're doing. I had a neighbor ask if maybe this is California though. No, I'm just kidding. But where they ask, can I bring your groceries up for you? Can I do something for you? And
that's
and
nice.
I haven't seen that so much before. And they actually want to hear what you have to say, where before everyone's too busy. They didn't really have that time to talk about it.
Oh, that's good. So there is a silver lining to, and I've sensed that too. Like I've had a lot more people communicating with me on Skype and email and that than previously, because everyone's got the time to actually do this, So silver lining. Okay. Will, have you noticed any silver linings in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, a bit like you, people who I haven't spoken to for quite a while now are calling in and checking out what's going on because they've got more time in their hand. And I notice when I go for walks through the suburbs in the afternoon, I can just feel a more warm energy. Families are actually spending time together. They're getting to know each other, and I see them more happy and warm, and it's been quite noticeable for me.
And there's online shopping still. I mean, I'm happy. So, I was just going to say, I won a prize at uni this last year, and it came with some money, which was quite nice. So, and I knew my kids wanted one of those new fangled scooter things, the electrical ones. So I thought I'd get us one of those, and that arrived a couple of days ago. And so we've been social distancing on the scooter basically, and we've been going up and down the driveway. We're on acreage, so we've got quite a large driveway and a long driveway. And the neighbours been coming out to check out the scooter too, but at a distance, So it's kind of, it takes me back to when I used to live in England, and we used to have like street parties, you know, where it's not such a big thing over here in Australia, but I grew up in England, and there everyone, for you drop of a hat, you'd have a street party to something, you know, and that's what it's kind of felt like the last few days here, you know, with the scooter. Like everyone's had a go. We have been disinfecting the handles in between rides, but it's it's been quite nice. What about you, Rob? Have you what's any silver lining of all of this? Mm-hmm.
Any silver lining for me? I'm not sure about a silver lining, but it's been nice. Things really haven't changed in my life per se. I was pretty solitary, at most of the time. So in reality, for me, not little has changed. It really hasn't changed. Like I said, the only change I've noticed is there's no Dave rolls on the shelf at Woolies. So that's, in real terms, that's about it.
So what are you using?
But I've noticed. Well,
what's the alternative?
I've always had this impression in my life that something big was going to happen in my life. I never really actually wanted to have children. I just knew that there was something that was going to occur in my lifetime that wasn't going to sit right. And for a long time, I've had a lot of pre-packed dry foods, vacuum packed, stored, rice, pasta, beans, things like that.
But no toilet roll.
And it was, but I'd already rationed this out in a lot of stuff because in the studies I've been doing, and I don't want to get too involved with that now. That's not the topic of discussion tonight. But it's part and parcel of a lot of things, and this could be a cover for that once again. So it's all another issue there.
Well, that's all for our podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a positive review over on iTunes for The Open-Minded Skeptic. My team and I look forward to entertaining you once again in our next podcast. To check when our next podcast is, simply head over to www.tomspod.com. That's www.tomspod.com.